Picture this: you step into a Roman villa at night. Oil lamps flicker against painted walls, casting shadows that seem alive. Through silk curtains, you overhear whispers of beauty rituals so toxic they slowly killed the women who used them. A senator's wife appears, her face painted with deadly lead and her lips crimson with mercury. She looks radiant, but every breath is poison. This was daily life in ancient Rome, a world where survival, desire, and power were entangled in ways both fascinating and horrifying. Section 1. Imagine yourself wandering the cool stone halls of a wealthy Roman domus as twilight descends. The villa stands outside the bustling heart of the city, its outer walls blank and forbidding to passers-by, but within, a world of color, luxury, and secrets. Oil lamps flicker on bronze stands, their flames licking upward, painting shadows across walls alive with frescoes, gods seducing mortals, animals leaping mid-hunt, vines and blossoms curling into impossible patterns. Through thin-woven curtains, you overhear laughter, high, nervous, and musical. Lady Septima Flavia, wife of a rising senator, reclines on a couch of ivory and cedar while her slave girls prepare the unguents for her nightly rituals. Their hushed voices carry in fragments, complaints about the bitterness of imported creams, gossip about rival households, speculation about which perfumes will please or offend tomorrow's guests. The air is heavy with layers of scent. Crushed roses, myrrh smoldering in small clay braziers, and beneath it, the faint tang of metal from powders that should never touch skin. Septima's face is already pale, almost ghost-like, painted with a foundation of lead carbonate. She runs her tongue across her lips, tinted crimson with a paste of mercury and cinnabar, and feels the bitter trace at the edges of her mouth. She knows the poisons seep into her body, that her headaches grow sharper each season, but to appear without them would invite ridicule. One of her girls, little Diana, only 13, stirs the mixture with a bronze spoon. She whispers, "Domina, this will keep the years from you." Septima lets out a dry laugh, motioning for the girl to continue. "Child, the years take what they wish. Our task is only to persuade men that they have not." Her sandals tap across the mosaic floor as she moves toward her husband's study. Inside, a gathering of men await, scrolls unfurled, wine cups already half drained. Her entrance is graceful, trained, every motion rehearsed to signal modesty, wealth, and control. Yet as she steps across the threshold, she feels the weight of Rome's expectations pressing into her bones. These corridors are not simply walls of marble. They are channels of power, where every glance, every gesture, every rumor might shape a family's fate. And outside these chambers, beyond the laughter and the scents, lies a world where intimacy itself is not private but political, where love, desire, and even the body are defined by rules few of us today could bear to follow. Section 2. The men in the study turn briefly at Septima's entrance, their conversation faltering for only a heartbeat before resuming as though she were merely another piece of furniture. Her husband, Marcus Livius Vero, gestures with a raised brow, acknowledging her presence but offering no words of greeting. Septima bows her head slightly, the gesture calculated. Respectful but not subservient, modest but not meek. She lowers herself onto a low stool near the back of the chamber, where the shadows are thick enough to conceal her expression but not her presence. The men discuss grain imports, provincial taxes, and the ever-rumbling legions on the German frontier. But beneath the practical talk lies an undercurrent of rivalry: who will be favored in the Senate tomorrow, whose client network has expanded, whose name will be whispered in the right ears. Septima listens, her eyes lowered but her mind sharp. She has learned to read more from what is unsaid than from words themselves. At her side, one of her handmaidens kneels, carefully setting down a small silver casket of perfumed oil. The girl glances up, uncertain. Septima rests her hand on the child's shoulder, a silent reassurance. She remembers her own youth. The night she was led, trembling, into Marcus's chamber for the first time, barely 15, painted and veiled, surrounded by older women who murmured instructions she barely understood. She had been told she was fortunate, Marcus was not unkind, and he valued order more than cruelty. Yet her memories of that night are still shadows, impressions of fear and the weight of expectation rather than of love. The men argue now over a new law concerning marriage alliances. A senator named Caius Hostilius leans forward, his voice low but edged. If Rome is to remain strong, our families must remain pure. Too many seek brides from equestrian or even freedman stock. The lines blur, and soon the honor of our class will blur as well. Marcus strokes his beard, nodding slowly. Honor lies not only in blood, Hostilius, but in power. A wife's dowry can strengthen a man's standing as surely as an ancestor's name. Septima lowers her gaze, concealing a flicker of amusement. She knows Marcus married her for precisely that reason, her father's estates, her mother's kinship with the former consul. Love had never been the bargain. But within her laughter lies bitterness. Even now, seated among marble and oil lamps, she feels herself less wife than coin, a measure of alliance, fertility, and respectability. She shifts, adjusting the folds of her saffron stola, and catches Hostilius's eyes upon her. His look is quick, practiced, the kind of glance Roman men think invisible. Septima feels her stomach twist, not with desire but with calculation. She knows his wife is ill, that his household has grown vulnerable. Information like this is a kind of currency. And Septima, like many matrons before her, has learned that in Rome, whispered knowledge is sharper than any blade. The lamps sputter, and Marcus claps his hands. Enough for tonight. Tomorrow we speak again. The men rise, stretching stiff limbs, servants rushing forward with cloaks. Septima stands as well, her face an unreadable mask. But within, her thoughts turn already to the slave girl's whispers, to the secrets that pass through kitchens and bedchambers. Rome's politics do not live only in the forum. They live here, in the silence between oil lamps, and in the eyes that linger too long. Section 3. Later that night, the villa is hushed, save for the faint trickle of water from the central fountain. Septima retreats to her private chamber, her footsteps echoing softly against the mosaic floor depicting dolphins leaping across waves. 2 slave girls follow her, carrying bronze mirrors and boxes of powders. She dismisses them with a wave of her hand. Enough. I will tend myself tonight. They bow low and vanish through the curtain, grateful for the rare reprieve. Septima stands before the polished bronze mirror, regarding the pale mask staring back at her. The lead paint hides every imperfection but leaves her skin heavy, dull. She takes a linen cloth, dampened with vinegar, and rubs away the layer. The cloth comes away streaked white and gray. Beneath, her real face emerges, faint lines at the corners of her eyes, a slight hollowness to her cheeks. She is 32, and though in Rome that is not yet old, she feels the whispers approaching. The city is cruel to women who show age. From outside her chamber, voices rise faintly, the slaves in their quarters, whispering, laughing, quarreling. Septima strains her ear. In these murmurs she often gleans more truth than from Marcus's colleagues. Tonight she hears Diana's high, nervous tone. Domina will sicken if she keeps using the red paste. I saw a noblewoman in the Subura who could not walk straight from it. Her hands trembled like a drunkard's. Another voice, older, replies, Hush! Speak such words too loudly, and your tongue will be cut. Septima closes her eyes. The poison is no secret. Every matron in Rome knows the dangers, yet none will cease. Beauty is armor, more reliable than family or faith. Without it, she is naked before rivals. With it, she is slowly consumed. The curtain rustles, and Marcus enters, still smelling of wine and spiced meat. He removes his cloak, tossing it onto a stool. Septima, he says flatly, the Hostilius matter grows urgent. His wife is fading, and already men speak of his need to remarry. He pours himself watered wine from the jug beside her bed. You will invite his household to dine. Make yourself dazzling. I would see him bound to us, not to another faction. Septima bows her head, masking her irritation. A dinner, another performance. She wonders if Marcus sees her as anything more than a vessel for alliances and heirs. Yet she knows better than to object. It shall be done, she answers softly. He drains his cup, eyes lingering on her. And see to your appearance. The years press quickly. When he leaves, Septima sits motionless for a long moment, staring at the faint smudge of red still clinging to her lips. Slowly, she dips her finger into the pot of cinnabar paste, tracing the deadly color back over her mouth. She whispers to her reflection, not without irony. Then let the years come. Outside, the city of Rome roars faintly through the night, carts rattling, drunkards singing, the distant barking of dogs. But within the villa, Septima feels the quieter roar, the grinding of expectations, the invisible chains of custom. And she wonders, not for the first time, whether intimacy, love, even beauty itself, are truly hers at all, or only Rome's. Section 4. 3 days later, the villa is transformed. Servants scurry like ants across the marble floors, carrying amphorae of Falernian wine, baskets of figs and dates, and trays of roasted dormice sprinkled with honey and poppy seeds. In the courtyard, cooks turn spits heavy with lamb, the fat crackling as it drips into the flames. The smell of rosemary and garlic mingles with incense offered to the household gods. Septima supervises everything with a calm mask, though inside she churns. She wears a stola dyed the deepest saffron, embroidered with tiny pearls that catch the lamplight. Her hair is piled high, braided and pinned with ivory combs carved in the shape of swans. Across her face, the familiar poison mask of lead and mercury glows pale and flawless. As her slaves fasten the final clasp at her shoulder, she forces a smile. If Rome wishes a goddess, she murmurs, then a goddess it shall have. Her young nephew, Quintus, only 9 years old, slips into the chamber as she adjusts her reflection. He is a solemn child, dark-eyed, already conscious of the weight of family reputation. And, he says, lowering his voice, why must you paint your face? You look kinder without it. Septima kneels to his level, cupping his cheek with careful fingers so as not to smudge the powders. Kindness, little one, is not what Rome values in a woman. Rome wants marble, not flesh. His brow furrows, but he nods solemnly, as if absorbing a lesson he cannot yet understand. The evening arrives. Guests pour in through the bronze doors, senators in crisp white togas edged with purple, their wives shimmering in silks, freedmen eager to be seen, poets trailing scrolls under their arms. Among them, Caius Hostilius arrives, his eyes heavy, his face shadowed by fatigue. His wife, pale and thin, leans on his arm, her every step a struggle. Septima greets them with a bow, her smile practiced but not unkind. Rome is honored to welcome you beneath our roof. Dinner unfolds with all the ritual of a sacred rite. Slaves pour wine, mix it carefully with water, and serve it in silver cups. Platters of oysters and roasted fish appear, followed by spiced sausages and baskets of warm bread. Laughter rises, voices clash and overlap, poets recite verses in exchange for a coin or two. Yet beneath the merriment, Septima feels the web tightening, glances traded, words weighed, alliances measured. At one point, Hostilius leans toward Marcus, his voice pitched low but not so low that Septima's ears cannot catch. You are fortunate, Vero. Not all men have wives who can charm a room so effortlessly. Marcus laughs, dismissing it with a wave. Charm is one matter, loyalty another. Septima has both, though I thank the gods for it daily. Septima lowers her gaze, concealing the sharp twist in her chest. Loyalty, yes. But loyalty in Rome is demanded, not offered. She sips her wine and lets the warmth slide down her throat, her eyes fixed on the lamps burning against the night. Later, as musicians play the lyre and guests recline more languidly, Septima slips away into the shadows of the peristyle garden. She inhales the cool night air, the scent of cypress and damp earth. From the atrium, laughter and music spill outward, but here she is alone. Or so she thinks. Domina. A soft voice. She turns and sees Diana, her youngest handmaiden, holding a small dish of rose-scented water. The girl bows quickly. I thought you might need refreshment. Septima studies her, the two large eyes, the nervous hands. She realizes how easily these girls vanish into the background, yet how much they see, how much they hear. She takes the dish and drinks, then sets it aside. Thank you, child. Tell me, what do the slaves whisper tonight? Diana hesitates, biting her lip. They say Hostilius searches for a wife already, though his lady yet breathes. They say he admires you. Her cheeks flush at the boldness of repeating such gossip. Septima feels the night air chill against her skin. She glances back toward the laughter of the feast. Then let them whisper, she says softly. Rome is built on whispers. Section 5. The feast drags on until the hour when even the most dignified senators loosen their tongues and laugh too freely. Septima returns to the triclinium, gliding across the marble floor with her head high, each step a performance. Her stola trails behind her like sunlight captured in fabric. As she resumes her place beside Marcus, she notices Hostilius watching her, not lecherously, but with the calculated gaze of a man assessing both opportunity and risk. Marcus, flushed from wine, raises his cup and proclaims, "To Rome, eternal and unconquered! And to the families who guard her strength!" The guests echo his toast, cups lifted, wine spilling onto polished tables. Septima lifts her own, but her mind drifts elsewhere. She cannot ignore the weight of Hostilius's gaze. She feels it even as she turns away, even as musicians strike their chords louder to drown drunken arguments. Later, when the guests depart, Marcus retires to his study, already discussing with his steward which gifts must be sent tomorrow to cement the evening's impressions. Septima excuses herself, walking the long colonnade back to her chambers. Her sandals click against stone mosaics of Apollo chasing Daphne, and for a fleeting moment she envies Daphne's transformation into a laurel tree, escaped through metamorphosis. In her chamber, Diana waits with a basin of warm water scented with lavender. She kneels, carefully loosening Septima's pins, letting her heavy hair tumble down. The young girl whispers, "Domina, Hostilius's steward spoke among the servants. He said his master dreams of a new union, one that could raise him higher than any law." Septima closes her eyes as Diana combs through her hair. A new union. Already the city stirs with speculation. Hostilius's wife breathes still, but Rome counts her as gone. Septima knows the danger. If whispers spread too far, even her loyalty might be questioned. And loyalty, once questioned, is as fragile as wax in the sun. "Diana," she says quietly, "what else do the servants know?" The girl hesitates, her small hands trembling in Septima's hair. "They know that Hostilius watches you. They say his wife's sickness is no accident. Some claim he feeds her herbs that weaken her blood." She stops, biting her lip. "Forgive me, mistress. I should not repeat such things." Septima grips the edge of the couch, her knuckles pale beneath the powders. Poison. The word hangs unspoken, heavier than any incense. She dismisses Diana with a gentle pat, then sits alone in the lamplight, staring at the shadows that stretch like fingers across her walls. If Hostilius truly seeks her, whether by rumor or by calculation, then Marcus's position may rise, or collapse. A senator's wife who draws too much attention becomes dangerous. Septima knows her role. To embody pudicitia, the Roman virtue of chastity and restraint, yet also to shine brightly enough to magnify Marcus's honor. The line is impossibly thin. Step too far, and she could fall into ruin. That night she dreams of Pompeii, not the city buried under ash, but the painted bedrooms archaeologists centuries later will uncover. She sees frescoes of gods and slaves entwined, masks grinning from plaster walls, every secret preserved. In her dream, she presses her painted lips to the wall, and the pigment crumbles to ash between her fingers. She wakes before dawn, heart racing, and whispers into the silence. Rome devours its own. Section 6. The dawn creeps pale over the tiled roofs of Rome. From her chamber window, Septima watches as the city stirs to life, carts rattling over cobblestones, bakers shouting their wares, a trumpet sounding faintly from the direction of a legionary camp. The air smells of bread, smoke, and the dampness of night retreating. Marcus has already left to meet with his allies in the Forum, his footsteps brisk, his words clipped. He kissed Septima's forehead in passing, a gesture more ceremonial than affectionate. Now she is alone except for her slaves, who move silently about their duties. Septima orders Diana to fetch her a scroll. From the library, she says. The one with Pliny's letters. The girl hurries away, eager to please. Septima rarely reads for pleasure anymore, too much risk of being caught with the wrong words at the wrong time. But today her hands itch to see the stories of other women's fates. While she waits, she walks the length of her chamber. Every mosaic, every painted god on her walls feels like a pair of watching eyes. Her fingers brush against a bronze lamp carved in the shape of Venus rising from the sea. She wonders if Venus ever tires of watching mortals flounder in the snares of love and duty. Diana returns, clutching the scroll in both hands. Septima unfurls it, scanning lines about marriages arranged like contracts, girls trembling on their wedding nights, mothers whispering advice about endurance instead of joy. She sighs and closes the parchment. The words comfort her in a strange way. Her suffering is not singular but woven into centuries of custom. Later that morning, as she walks through the peristyle garden, she finds her steward, Gaius, speaking with a messenger in a dusty cloak. They fall silent at her approach, but not quickly enough. Septima fixes them with her pale, painted gaze. "What news?" the messenger bows. "Domina, it is said Lady Hostilia grows weaker. Physicians whisper she will not last a month." Septima dismisses him with a wave, but inside her chest her heart beats sharp and fast. Not last a month! Already the city sharpens its knives of rumor and ambition. She knows Marcus will hear this soon, and he will calculate what it means for his career. That evening Marcus returns late, his cloak heavy with rain. He strides into their chamber, not bothering to remove his sandals. "You must be careful, Septima," he says without preamble. "Hostilius has enemies. If men believe you, attract his gaze, tongues will wag. I cannot have my household used against me." Septima lifts her chin. "And if he does look at me? Is that my crime?" Marcus glares at her, his voice low but sharp. "Your duty is not to be noticed. Your duty is to reflect honor, not invite suspicion. Do not forget yourself." The words sting more than she will admit. She bows her head, but when Marcus turns away, her eyes flash with quiet defiance. She knows her place, but she also knows the subtle power she wields, in whispers, in glances, in secrets carried by trembling slaves. If Marcus thinks her powerless, he underestimates her. That night, while he sleeps beside her, Septima lies awake, staring into the dark. She thinks of Hostilius's wife, pale and fading. She thinks of Diana's trembling whispers about poison. And she wonders, in Rome, is a woman's survival found in virtue, or in cunning? Section 7. The next morning, Septima lingers in the atrium, watching as household slaves sweep the marble floors and polish the bronze statues of the Lares, the guardian spirits of the home. From the corner of her eye she studies them, their movements, their glances. Slaves live in silence before their masters, but their silence is never empty. It is heavy with what they know. She gestures for Diana to stay behind when the others disperse. The girl hesitates, clutching her broom. Septima lowers her voice. "You have ears sharper than most. Tell me, what did the kitchen boys say after the feast?" Diana shifts nervously, but the urge to please outweighs her fear. "They said Senator Hostilius gave extra coins to the cupbearers, more than was required. Some wondered if he sought their loyalty, or their silence." "Silence about what?" Septima presses. The girl glances toward the hall, making sure no one listens. "About the herbs brought to his household. Not ordinary herbs, Domina. Bitter roots, powders from the east. One of the cooks swore they smelled of foxglove." Septima inhales sharply. Foxglove, a poison strong enough to stop the heart. She dismisses Diana with a nod, her mind racing. If the rumors were true, Lady Hostilia's frailty was not sickness but design. And if Hostilius could poison one wife, what fate might await another? That afternoon, As Marcus entertains a client in the study, Septima slips into the peristyle garden. She finds comfort among the cypress trees and the trickling fountain, but her solitude is broken by the approach of her elder maid, Sulpicia. The woman bows, her lined face betraying years of quiet endurance. "Domina," Sulpicia says softly, "there is something you should know. Hostilius's steward sent word to one of our footmen. He asked whether your household keeps the services of a physician named Albinus." Septima narrows her eyes. "And why would he ask such a question?" Sulpicia hesitates, then continues. "Because, Domina, Albinus is known to prepare mixtures, to strengthen wounds, to sweeten the skin, and to delay the hand of age. Mixtures only noblewomen dare to buy." A cold realization settles over Septima. Hostilius is not merely watching her. He is gathering knowledge, tracing the steps of her private life. Already, he weaves a web, and she stands near its center. That evening, Marcus speaks of politics again, his voice heavy with ambition. "If Hostilius's wife dies, he will need allies. A new marriage could bind him to our cause. He may look toward you to arrange matters among his kin." Septima says nothing, though the weight of his words coils tight inside her. Arrange matters. That was how men disguised the chains they forged for women. As night deepens, she dismisses her slaves and extinguishes the lamps. But long after Marcus's breathing steadies beside her, Septima remains awake, staring into darkness. In her silence, she whispers to herself, "If Rome would make me a pawn, I will learn to move like a queen." Section 8. The days that follow are filled with preparation, not for feasts or festivals, but for quiet maneuvers. Septima begins to spend more time in the women's quarters of other noble villas, under the pretense of exchanging recipes for cosmetics or learning new weaving patterns. In truth, she listens. In the triclinium of Lady Calvina, a cousin of the consul, Septima reclines on cushions while young slaves pour watered wine. The women speak of embroidery and household shrines, but as the wine flows, tongues loosen. "Hostilius grows restless," Calvina whispers, her voice just above the rustle of silk. "His wife fades like a candle. They say he consults astrologers to choose the most auspicious day to remarry." She leans closer, her breath tinged with honeyed wine. "Some predict he will choose you, Septima. Rome notices how he watches." Septima lowers her eyes demurely, though her pulse beats fast. "Rome notices many things it should not," she replies, forcing a faint smile. But inside, she weighs the danger. If gossip has already spread to Calvina's household, it has likely reached the ears of senators' wives throughout the city. That evening, when she returns home, she summons Sulpicia and Diana. The girls kneel before her, eyes cast down. "You will listen more carefully from now on," Septima instructs. "When merchants deliver herbs to the kitchens, when physicians are called, when guests whisper after too much wine, I want every word brought to me. Do you understand?" "Yes, Domina," they murmur together. She dismisses them, then walks alone through the peristyle. The fountain gurgles softly, its basin lined with lotus blossoms. She dips her fingers into the water, watching the ripples spread outward. Rome itself feels like this fountain, every secret a droplet, every whisper a widening circle. If she can control where the ripples flow, she can control the image they create. A week later, word reaches her that Lady Hostilia has taken a sudden turn. Septima is in her chamber when Marcus bursts in, his expression grim but alert. "She will not live long," he says flatly. "Already men speculate about her replacement. Hostilius's house must bind itself anew. We cannot allow him to drift toward our rivals." Septima stares at him, her painted face unreadable. "And what role do you imagine for me in this binding?" Marcus studies her, his mouth tightening. "A wife must sometimes serve beyond her bed. Charm him. Win his confidence. Make him believe our household shares his interests." For a long moment, she says nothing. Then she inclines her head, as though accepting a duty she has no choice but to bear. "As you command." When Marcus leaves, Septima grips the edge of her table until her knuckles ache. charm him. Win him. Always Rome demands women bleed silently in the shadows while men take the glory. But this time, she resolves, she will not be merely an instrument. This time, if she must play the game, she will play it to win. Section 9. The summons comes sooner than expected. Hostilius invites Septima to his villa under the guise of honoring the household gods. Marcus encourages her to attend, his tone clipped with command. Do as you must. Secure his loyalty. Septima arrives at dusk, carried in a litter draped with saffron curtains. Hostilius greets her in the atrium, his wife absent, too frail to leave her bed. He is courteous, his words measured, but his eyes betray the hunger of a man who sees opportunity in every gesture. They walk together through his gardens, the sky painted in fading purples and golds. Rome whispers, Lady Septima, he says at last, his voice smooth. It whispers that you are cleverer than most matrons, that you hear more than you speak. Septima tilts her head, her veil brushing against her cheek. Rome whispers many things, Senator. Often it whispers lies. Hostilius studies her in silence, then smiles faintly. Lies can still shape destinies. Consider this, my household soon will stand empty. I must choose whether to fill it with allies or leave it vulnerable. Tell me, should I look to your husband's house, or elsewhere? Septima feels the weight of his words pressing on her. A test. A temptation. She answers with a calm she does not feel. Look where loyalty endures. Ambition without loyalty crumbles like ash. He laughs quietly, though his eyes remain sharp. Spoken like one who understands both ambition and loyalty. That night, Septima returns home, her body tense, her mind alive with calculation. She tells Marcus only that Hostilius seeks allies, nothing more. He nods, satisfied. But as she lies awake beside him, she knows the truth is more complex. She has been seen not merely as a wife, but as a force in her own right. The days that follow are filled with silence and waiting. Lady Hostilia dies quietly, her funeral marked by solemn pomp. Hostilius does not propose, not yet, but rumors swirl like storm clouds. Septima keeps her head bowed, her words careful, her network of whispers ever tighter. In the privacy of her chamber, she confides only to herself. I will not be devoured. Her reflection stares back at her from the bronze mirror, pale paint masking the trembling of her lips. The poisons may hollow her body, but her spirit sharpens. Rome will never allow her freedom. But within its marble corridors, she has carved something rarer, power veiled in silence, influence wrapped in modesty. Men may believe they hold the game in their hands, but Septima knows better. She has learned that intimacy in Rome is never innocent, never merely personal. It is weapon and shield, leash and snare. And as long as she breathes, she will wield it.